Okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to the Crack the Case Launchpad CNA's inaugural panel discussion of 2026. I'm Kirtana, Head of Product and Business Strategy at the Consulting and Analytics Club of IIT Guwahati. So tonight we mainly have two things happening. First, we have four incredible IITG alumni here with us to talk about breaking into consulting, product, business strategy, and entrepreneurship. And second, we also have something that we've been working on for a while now that we're really excited to share with you all tonight, but more on that later. So a quick bit of context before we start. Most of us here are surrounded by, people doing DSA prep aiming for software roles. And that makes a lot of sense because they're obviously good paths. But if you're someone who's been wondering whether there's a different kind of career out there, one that's more about solving business problems, understanding users, and driving strategy, then tonight is for you. So these roles exist and they're growing rapidly. And the people who've cracked them are right here to discuss with us. So first, let me just introduce our panelists. First, we have Aman Tomar Bhaiya, IITG class of 2015. After graduating, Aman Bhaiya went on to do his MBA from UVA Darden School of Business and spent several years at BCG as a consultant. He's now at the CEO's office at Spinny, one of India's fastest growing used car platforms. So most of you might also remember him from CNA's winter consulting session last year. So a familiar face, and we're really glad to have him back. Welcome, Aman Bhaiya.
Thank you.
Next, we have Vibhor Kalra Bhaiya, IITG class of 2013. Vibhor Bhaiya is currently Senior Director of Product Management at Paytm. His journey has been a really interesting one. He's been a management consultant, a data scientist, co-founded his own startup, and has built deep product expertise across consumer tech and fintech. Welcome, Vibhor Bhaiya.
Hey, thanks, Kirtana.
Yeah. Third, we have Aseem Bansal Bhaiya, IITG class of 2008. Aseem Bhaiya did his MBA from ISB, worked in strategy and operations at Max Healthcare, and is now the founder of Admit Expert, an MBA admissions consulting firm that's helped hundreds of candidates get into top B schools around the world. He also serves on the ISB Alumni Council. Welcome, Aseem Bhaiya.
Thanks, Kirtana.
Yeah. And finally, we have Chinmaya Kumar Bhaiya, IITG class of 2021. Chinmaya Bhaiya has worked at Sprinkler and ICICI Bank, done a product co-op at Butterfly in the US, and currently works across product design and data, and is also doing his master's. Welcome, Chinmaya Bhaiya.
Thank you, Kirtana.
Yeah, we're really glad to have all four of you here tonight. Thank you so much for making the time. So let's just dive right into the discussion. So firstly, we would like to start with a question that I think is on a lot of people's mind before they even start preparing. Am I the right fit for this? So when you think about consulting, product growth, or entrepreneurial roles, what actually makes someone suited for them? For example, what exactly does the usual problem-solving answer for consulting really mean in practice? We'd like an answer from each one of you based on whatever roles you've done, what you think would be the right fit for them.
Yeah, okay. I can go first. I think we were just speaking about this, Kirtana, just before we kind of started. So I don't know if I'll be able to help you with a particular fit, and I've kind of thought about like whether this fits you or not. I think all of you are sharp folks. So like the moment you get exposed to something like running a business or working in a business, like you'll be able to understand or you will figure your way out around it, whether you like, as you know, one of the first question which says like problem solving mindset, like what does it actually mean? So there are a bunch of essentially like domains you could find yourself fitting into, and I think Aman has worked across a bunch of those. So business strategy, product management, some of the keywords that kind of Kirtana mentioned in her intro. There's a lot of scope to explore. You'll be able to, I believe, certainly you'll be able to figure out. I believe one thing that you might need to decide at this point in time would be whether you're excited by some like working in a business or not, right? I think that could be a like one lens to look at it. Yeah, I'll just throw it and I'll kind of chime in whenever Aman, Aseem, my guys, go ahead.
Yeah, I can also just add to that, Vibhor, very rightly put. I think it's also very early to decide fit, right? You have not figured out yourself completely, right? Um, the only professional exposure you might have right now is probably the internships you might have taken, right? And there also, I think you do not get the real flavor of what accountability would look like, when you would enter any job, right? In any sort of a role. So I feel I'm always on the camp, but Asim, you were also saying before this in our discussion that you should always get some exposure. And I think that exposure shall lie in a firm where you get some sort of a direct accountability to meaningful projects, right? It can be a startup, it can be a large firm. What matters is that the team you join and the mentorship you get in that team, those are the two big. Those two things should be a big hit. And essentially, those are the times when you essentially figure your strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately start picking the areas or start gravitating towards some of your initial interests, where you are starting to contribute and eventually are also enjoying while you're doing that work. Right? I think then it sort of looks like a more organic process. It's very hard to put a framework to things at this stage in your life when you have, let's say, little exposure to that.
Yeah, I mean, agree with both Vibhor and Aman. So, but one thing which I want to say is that, I mean, you can think if you are more of an entrepreneurial kind, or if you want to, let's say, work in corporate and grow in corporate setting. I mean, of course, it won't be a very clear-cut decision. But for example, like if I give you my example, I always had this entrepreneurial bug, but I kind of did not start a venture just out of IITG. I took up corporate jobs, also explored other things, prepped for civil services, worked in a corporate role, did MBA, did all stuff, everything. But eventually I got the satisfaction after I started an entrepreneurial venture, right? So if you feel that you have an entrepreneurial bug, I would suggest, I mean, of course, like you should get into a job, maybe a founders or let's say a job in a startup, which would give you a much better exposure. But also maybe just keep on experimenting with some venture on the sidelines. And now with tools like Claude, etc., it's very easy to build something, right? On the other hand, if you feel that you want to climb the corporate ladder, then of course, like you have to go ahead in a much more structured manner in terms of what you really want to do. Are you a consultant kind, or are you more interested in tech? If you're more interested in tech, then Vibhor and Chinmay might give you better insights into how to crack into a product management role. For consulting, Aman would give you much better insights into how to crack into a consulting role. But yeah, I mean, if you have that entrepreneurial bug, then my suggestion would be to start something in parallel, keep on experimenting with it. Don't wait till one perfect moment, because that perfect moment ideally never comes until you decide to start something.
I can't speak for consulting, but for product, I can say that problem solving means like you're comfortable holding on to ambiguity. Like you don't know exactly what the answer is for. Like since I like recently graduated, like I could see the parallels. Like it's usually like in IIT we're so trained to like try to get a logical solution and just try to find the answer immediately through logic. But when it comes to business like product, it's not that straightforward. So you should be able to hold on to ambiguity. I think that is something, if you're comfortable with or you're interested in learning how to do, then you should consider this industry. And secondly, I mean, of course, if you're really good with solving problems, computer science problems or logical thinking, then go the tech route. But if you're interested in a bit of like design, corporate, and you feel like you're a much more multi kind of person, like through different domains, then yeah, you should pursue these fields.
That was really insightful. I think main takeaway was the experience speaks more than anything else. So, you won't really know what you're good at unless you try it out for yourself. So going on that itself, let's say people think that, okay, I might be a good fit for non-tech because, I am good at communication. I'm good at maybe like design sense and etc. And they decide to go into non-tech. But once they're actually in the role itself, they realize maybe this is not what I expected. So what do you think would be a good time frame for people to actually really realize what the role is about and whether they actually enjoy it or not? And when to actually pivot to something else in case they realize that they don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, I think the real answer is it depends, like where you are. But I would feel, I think anywhere between 6 to 12 months, you also need to demonstrate some sort of patience, because it's hard when you are new into an organization for the organization to put their trust readily, like right away as you enter, right? So you need to start picking smaller slivers of opportunity, show your ability to deliver on those projects. They might be smaller in nature, but I think they talk a lot about how you approach problems, how qualitatively you deliver on them, and that reputation certainly starts compounding, and you start getting bigger and better opportunity and visibility among the decision makers, right? And that's the very nature of how humans operate, I feel, right? But I think if you're very sure, if you have that sixth sense about where you are, that this is definitely not the kind of work that you like to do, but and you've honestly had enough interactions with people in the firm and you've built that decision. I think in today's time, it doesn't even make sense to stay on and drag that for long, right? So it's a very nuance. You have to put some nuances to everybody's situation, right? But yeah, I think just make an informed decision in today's time, right? Just have a good gut check, talk to people, be a lot more out there, right? When you're initially there and things are not working out for you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Aman Bhaiya said. Like 6 to 12 months is actually a really good number because, of course, like when you're young, you'll have like you'll feel okay, this is not the place for me, or this is absolutely the place for me. Your opinions vary really extremely, but within 6 to 12 months, you'll actually have a concrete idea. Like people will know who you are, and you'll actually get meaningful work in the organization for you to actually decide whether this is the place for me or for to him or her. And also, every organization has different kinds of work. So during your time there, you can ask for other kinds of work, so you can actually know what is it that I like. You don't have to just change your job or go to a different company just because you don't like the flavor of work you have.
Yeah, I mean, agree. So it's basically a trade-off. So, I mean, you can't just keep on skipping to something new very frequently because you have to stay in something to really kind of gain an expertise in that thing, and only then you would become interested. But at the same time, you can't just keep on dragging something which you don't like. So yeah, so I think 6 to 12 months would give you a fair idea about whether you like something or not. And if you like it somewhat, then I would suggest maybe give it some more time, gain some expertise in it, and then see if you really want to continue in that path, doing that thing, or you want to pivot to something else.
Yeah, I think like very subjective, again, like not helpful. But you might realize within like the first month, you might realize after 5 years, so you work, the kind of problems you keep working on will change, right, as you grow in your career. And this is specifically if you are talking about right out of college, if you want to understand what should be the right frame of time, I think 6 to 12 months is the right answer, because before that, you'll not be able to even experience the entire depth of what it entails. Like usually all of these roles are very fluid, complex enough for you to take some time and understand. But I wouldn't advocate sticking around even for a minute if you are not happy. If you like, it doesn't matter, right? So essentially, after 10 years, I might realize that now my problems are figuring out how to solve somebody else's problem. That's my problem to solve. Yeah, I want to solve his problem for him so that he focuses on the problem that I want to solve, and that gets solved. Right. So your problems will keep on changing. Like you might be doing different things in organizations at different times, and you might decide that you might not like it. And this is, hey, I don't feel like it. I should keep solving other people's problems or doing their work for them or doing something else that your organization demands you to do to be actually successful. So you might choose to leave, but essentially, like, yes, 6 to 12 months right out of college would be a good enough time frame for you to understand what it actually entails. and then take a decision.
Yeah, I think people got a good idea out of that. So getting to the next part. So this is something that a lot of people want to talk about, but they don't really ask, which is salary. So do you think at the entry level there is a gap between what non-tech and tech roles pay, and in the future does it even matter in the long run?
It's true. Even right now, also you have NVIDIA engineers earning. So there is always going to be some divide, and how organizations value talent. So let's say if you were to go to a Google as an example, or if you would and then compare roles like highly leveraged roles like product management, or compare even engineering, the amount of pride Google has in engineering and the kind of problems they work on, the kind of scale they work on. Engineers could also be very well paid as opposed to product managers, who might be which might be a more leveraged position. Even then, they are paid lesser than engineers. So that can always be true, and can also be the other way around, where people value more leverage and let's say less actual technical expertise in certain organizations, certain startups. Product managers might be made more, but specifically from a college point of view, when you are applying for placements and applying to kind of at an entry level, my sense is software engineering now itself is the future itself is and for all informational work, not just software engineering, for all informational work, it's very uncertain right now for any kind of work that you would do in that environment, right? Yes, you're hiring more, you're hiring less, you're firing, you're cutting down jobs also. So it will pay more, is my sense. You might have PMs, because I can only speak about product management. Data, as an example, as a function is lesser paid than engineering, is what I feel. Product as a function could be paid more than engineering, but product right out of college will never be paid more than engineering on a median P75, whatever that kind of scale. Because it requires you to have product management experience, which is a catch-22 kind of situation. But yeah, you will see that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel it's also what you were saying before. It's a classic demand supply, right? I mean, their skill is much more niche. It's less to find that kind of a skill right outside of the organization from the market at that rate, right? Which is why I think the rates are kept such that they find the cheapest tier, but also the most willing and hungry tier from these budding campuses, right? And hence that divide of salary exists, right? Now, again, with the world changing and how the nature of the software development role, that when we say tech, right, that changing, the new rules of the game are still to be defined. But I think it will still stay relevant, right? The world is moving towards a certain definition, and I feel, I mean, it's just that programs and the kind of courses that you guys take in the campus, right? That curriculum innovation will sort of make them more relevant towards the industry, wherever the industry moves towards, right? But I still feel completely echo what Vibhor was saying. I think that divide is going to stay.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I just want to go back to what Aman said, and previously also to the previous question, I'm not going to pander you guys, whoever is there in college, but Aman, I feel they have enough exposure. I believe half of these people are running businesses. I'm telling you, at least that's the sense that I get. A bunch of them, right? I personally didn't do anything that was remotely even aimed at let's say organizing my thoughts or putting a structure on what I want to do. So that exposure itself, I'm sure you have a leg up on us, everybody, and as you should, right? As you should. So problem solving plane will change, and then essentially, as Aman said, but tech divide you will see, some sort of tech divide you will see, because software engineering is still now going to be priced for different reasons. Earlier it was priced for different reasons. Now it's going to be priced for different reasons, but it's going to be there, and that divide is going to be there.
Yeah,
go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just saying, without a doubt, tech definitely pays more spread off the bat, but few years down the line, you can get the divide is going to reduce, depending on how skilled you turn out in that role, and also straight out of college, you might be tempted to go for the bigger paycheck, but trust me, like once a few paychecks come in, the kind of work you're doing would matter more, because then everything else diminishes, and you're like, okay, this is what's in front of me, and do I like doing this? So yeah, initially there might be an appeal for going behind money than the kind of work you're doing, but keep in mind your alignment and interest, even though there is like a pay gap between the various roles between tech and non-tech.
Yeah, I mean, although Vibhor and Chinmay are from core tech background, so they would have a better idea. But I mean, logically, AI is disrupting everything, all the industries, right? So, and when software engineers are being laid off. So logically, to me, it seems that the entry-level software engineering role salary might reduce or would reduce. But as the experience would grow, the more specialized roles, the product management roles, especially aligned more with LLMs or AI, they might start getting paid disproportionately higher, right? So I think even within the tech, that gap would widen even more between a software engineer versus a much more specialized product manager specializing in AI, LLMs, etc. Is what my sense is.
Yeah, I forgot I had this one point. Like, since I'm also like technically in the job market, I'm seeing a lot of AI product manager roles, or like APP. Like that's the new APM was like the buzzword. Now it's APP, Associate Product Builder. Like I think even LinkedIn had rolled out its like pilot cohort like last year. That's like a combination of a tech software guy, a product manager, and a designer all in one combined. And now with like Claude skills and like all these new AIs coming up, like the gap is reducing at least functionally. So keep that in mind, when you're considering career options.
And what about the non-tech roles? Let's say consulting or maybe a general management role. Aman, views on that? How's that shaping up?
I'm generally scared. Honestly, I'm on that side, right? But again, I feel it's going to become a lot more cutthroat because the clients are going to be a lot more demanding. They are not going to reach out to the MVPs of the world and pay fat paychecks to do a 3-month diagnostic anymore. Like they don't need that skill, right? And hence, what consulting firms need to be prepared of to be able to demand those price points to these Fortune 500s. I think they need to do a lot more within that 3 months of time, right? And that is only possible when they'll leverage AI a lot more, and then also bring in much sharper talent, right? Not just much wider talent. So I think it's just going to be more competitive at the bottom of the pyramid, at the entry level roles, and then it's just whoever continues to just continues to master the skill, compound in the skill, is going to go up the ladder. But I think the team sizes also are going to look much more smarter.
So is it fair to say, I mean, I'm just throwing this question to everyone, is it fair to say that the entry level roles across tech and non-tech would reduce in terms of salary, but as the experience would grow, more specialized roles, they would pay disproportionately higher? Is that, I mean, what are your thoughts? Yeah, Aman.
So this was one of my cases with BCG, with one of the firms actually. So and also like we did some internal study. My thought there is, what is AI helping you solve? It is helping you solve what an entry level person would have done, right? And that's essentially the what we say as the grunt work through which you would let people learn the skill and eventually start contributing. The time to get that outcome has reduced, right? That has accelerated. What it would need is somebody who's a tooling expert, right? Who really becomes that productive and probably is ready to contribute right from, let's say, day zero in the organizations, will still be able to command a good price point from the organizations. The difference would lie if the curriculums in these institutions like IITs or great undergrad programs, if it does not innovate. Like some people who would be motivated, who would have the exposure, as Vibhor was saying, in today's time, knowledge is democratized, right? somebody who would use that knowledge and become become an expert much faster than anyone else, right? That person would still kind of be in that 1% kind of career trajectories. But that's my take. It's still ever evolving. I change my answer on this every 2 months as I consume more. But as of now, my perspective is this.
I mean, everything is changing every 2 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even a lot of people considering tech and non-tech roles, look at usually how AI is progressing, and it's very uncertain for all of us. But yeah, I mean, what we've been advised to do as well is to just try and incorporate it as much as possible and try to work with it instead of against it.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully it'll work out. So yeah, moving to the next segment, considering that a lot of our audience is people who are trying to get into roles, one of the important things there is resumes. So according to you, what actually would get a resume noticed? If maybe you've been on the shortlisting side at some point, what would make you stop and read someone's resume versus just moving past it?
Naseem, that's your ground. Sorry, we wanted to say something.
No. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, Sim, please go ahead.
No. So I was just saying that from a recruiter point of view, what would get it noticed for me would be the relevance or the fit, right? So the role that I'm hiring for, if there's a good fit with that particular role, if there's a past experience, the candidate has displayed a good, let's say, achievement or impact, then I would definitely want to discuss more and further. But I think you wanted to ask more about tech and consulting specific, right? Resumes?
No, like in general, if there is something that, would get somebody noticed immediately for even, mostly non-tech roles. But I think when we are making our resumes, we are, confused about which section to make the strongest or, which to avoid, etc. So, is there something particularly that is given higher priority over the others?
So my 2 cents. So like I said, of course, apart from the general guidelines about what a good resume should look like, I would suggest if you're really interested in getting a job with some organization, then try to tailor your resume to fit with the requirements of that particular role or organization. It might seem like a tedious work, but it would definitely get your resume noticed much more than some generic resume which does not have a fit or relevance with that role or organization. Yeah, Vibhor, you wanted to say something.
Sorry, so yeah, and it's personal for who is evaluating. So you'll soon realize when you go through these motions of interviews and stuff, you'll realize that interviews are very personal. So it's nothing on the candidate. You never know. Your interviewer is in a bad mood and it could just go bad. That's okay. That's completely fine. But more to the point, I think 2 things. So that what I wanted to say is it's personal. So 2 things for me, at least, that I evaluate because I hire for product managers. And the way I've been evaluating resumes for me is one, please, the first problem statement you have, right, not right out of college, but let's say 4, 5, 6 years down the line, is to make sure that you're able to communicate whatever you want to communicate within 1 page. I honestly do not. There's no point. If you're not able to solve that problem, then specifically in a, let's say, product or a startup environment, product solving is not perhaps what you'll be good at, is what I'll infer. The second thing is clarity. If I'm able to understand what you write, and that's coming from a superiority complex of and being able to understand things. So if I'm able to understand what it means, what your statement means, without leaving 10,000 unanswered questions or deliberately leaving information out or deliberately, if you're able to communicate in that crisp sentence what it actually means, what you did, I'm happy to kind of shortlist that person at least. So that's from a product management scale, I feel it's really, really integral for you to be able to communicate with any kind of stakeholder. And for a person who's reading about your profile for the first time in their life, if you're able to communicate what you did well, clearly, without leaving unanswered questions, that's great. So I think just those two, and those are very personal again for me.
Yeah,
Sunil,
I can go. Yeah, so I can go on and on regarding the resume because I have spent so much time trying to fix my resume. It's like it's it's so annoying. It's like you fit it all in one page, and there is so many versions that you have to go through. I mean, it's sad actually because I think I've spent so much time trying to fix it up, given how competitive the market is. So we most of us here we use a framework called STAR, so that's situation, task, action, and result. So you try to bring most of your bullet points into that format and put it all in one page. It's a whole process to it. I'd actually attended a product conference where one of the panelists was like, if you're looking for a product manager role, you have to treat your resume as a product because that is your marketing tool, and how well you frame it, how concise, the number of iterations that it has to go through, showing it to people and making sure that just by looking at it, they are like, it's so concise, they can, like what Vibhor said, there's clarity in it. That is what really catches the eye of a recruiter, I feel. So treat it as an artifact, like your resume. So there is no end to making it better. Have multiple versions of it, and yeah, I think in the current scenario, it's really good to take care of your resume. Yeah.
I think practical advice is what's in my side, right? So practical advice is essentially treat it as a problem you want to solve. Have have your own philosophy of what you want to say. Like, why is something important? What do you want to communicate through your resume? Is it what you have been able to achieve? Is it what you have been able to learn? Is it your let's say your hunger for learning or your exposure to things? Could be n number of things. So you could have a dimension and then try and solve that problem. That I want to be able to communicate this best. How do I do that?
Yeah, and I think just adding to that, don't want to kind of spoil the party, but I also think that people spend not more than 5 to 10 seconds on the resume, and
Absolutely.
they make an opinion within that amount of time, right? So if your resume sounds like a job description in that 5 second of glimpse that I've had, I think you've just lost that opportunity, right? So it definitely needs to talk about your best, most impactful achievements. Otherwise, it's just very hard to separate black ink on white paper. Unfortunately, we are in a country where the talent is just enormous, right? And it's very hard to separate one person. In fact, like people, couple of years difference in their graduating classes, right? The kind of experience may not be very different, but someone's ability to communicate it, as Vibhor was saying, right? That really differentiates which one goes ahead in the queue. So keep that lens always, that if you're trying to get the attention of somebody within that 5 to 6 seconds.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful for a lot of us. Even when we, as interns, were making our resume, we'd like confused about what words to use, how much white space to be left, etc. But yeah, I think we should, be focusing more on how to get the idea across in the best way possible. So yeah, beyond the resumes, for a lot of non-tech aspirants, off campus is going to be the route. So what would you suggest would be the best approach, to find roles, reach out and actually convert? And what could be the mistakes that people make when they're, trying to reach out through cold email or messages on LinkedIn, if you, come across them yourself as well?
This is my favorite one, honestly. Go ahead, Chinmay.
Yeah, I'll let Asim go first.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said earlier, so make it as customized to the role or the person that you are sending the cold email to as possible. So a generic cold email doesn't really incite any interest, right? But if, let's say, your cold email subject line say something which the recruiter is actually looking for, or which the person reading is actually looking for, then they would definitely stop and they would want to read that email. And if it gives them what they're actually looking for, then they would want to respond and take that conversation further. So, yeah, I mean, while there is also a law of averages, which means send as many cold emails and reach out to as many recruiters as you can. But again, don't just send out a mass email or just like apply to every role on LinkedIn. My suggestion would be to customize it to that role, really show that you have what they are actually looking for. And that would increase your probability to get a response and to get a job.
Yeah, echoing on what Asim said, yeah, hyper customize your applications, and like since you're applying for non-tech roles, like communication is key. Like how you present yourself, how you market yourself, and like it's really funny. Like when you in every organization I work, like the most cracked engineer or like the best techie has like no profile picture on his LinkedIn and like 100 connections, because for them their thing is problem solving. It's just in the end it comes down to how well you code. But when it's non-tech, it's like how well you post, how many people know you. And recently a new avenue I've found is attend a lot of hackathons. So it's like it's fun, you get to learn something new, and you meet a lot of people who are hiring there or are looking or are also looking for opportunities. So you people get to know you, like your presence is felt when you're in a hackathon or you're in a conference, and make meaningful connections there, reach out to them on LinkedIn, mail, build a network. I feel, because even after you get a job, it really takes you far. Of course, apply a lot, law of averages, all of that is there, but this is also something that needs to be built.
Yeah. I think I have a strong bias that your first cold outreach should not be asking for the job directly. I always feel that it should always ask for the next cue, and the next cue is that can there be a conversation, right? And your purpose of that outreach is to demonstrate how you can help. As Asim was saying, it has to be really talking about what you can contribute based on whatever you think is the right fit and what the role is for. But I think it cannot be a plea for, hey, give me the job, right? It just sounds very unprofessional. At best, I think the first email should be to establish a connect and what the person is looking for. It maybe just have a deeper understanding of that, right? So I know it can sound a bit contradictory to the advices that you should just write very detailed explanations of probably your projects, but I don't think that approach works in today's time.
Yeah, but I'm curious. I don't know. Like as freshers, I don't know honestly, and this is a very honest, candid answer. I wouldn't know that you'll have a lot to discuss right up front. Don't stop yourselves from like a lot of. So 5 years back, like when I was in the market, when I was looking for a job change, so I reached out to certain startups that I built my own thesis around as to how this would fare, the company would fare, or the industry would fare, the space would fare in a few years or months' time. And you could provide tangible value in like a bunch of different ways, right? So don't stop yourselves from doing that. If you feel strongly, another approach, as opposed to casting a wider net, is to cast an extremely tight net, right? So pick, if you have that luxury, think about it, spend time with yourself, where you can add value, and then essentially you could write to those companies, you could try and provide some value upfront, which is essentially a hook only and this is only particularly for startups, right? Particularly for companies that would entertain this sort of, kind of, somebody would even be reading your email or not. So particularly for those. And I feel on a more practical sense, I feel you will have, I'm sure everybody is aware of dozens of, you could build your own agents. You could, I'm sure there are products off the shelf that you can buy today that'll allow you to apply. That'll seek context from you. That'll have agents. That'll crawl listing sites, job boards. I'm sure there are dozens of products out there. Feel free to build like your own version of it. It's not that hard. And more so for startups, there are no more. Everybody is expected to be a builder now, because there is no reason for anybody who's, as you said, non-tech to not be able to contribute to tech now. Because tech companies, especially startups, okay, so when I say startups, essentially it's tech companies and smaller, earlier stage companies. So tech companies, essentially, the output or the outcome from for them is actually creating software. And now you have the tools, and it's been proven far too many oftentimes now, that you can actually meaningfully contribute. So they'd expect like a smaller startup. If you've contributed in the past, you can demonstrate that. You can send them a profile where you've done this. There are live products. Nothing is better than that. I think people will be intrigued. That is what they expect out of you. That is what I would expect if I were an earlier stage company. If I were be looking for hiring fresh graduates.
Yeah, I think that's a really, good perspective of how to actually start and how to go about mailing, to be very personalized and actually let them know that you're interested in their company particularly, rather than just the job in general. But coming to jobs, there is a role that's called business analyst that comes up a lot nowadays. So it's also called, data analyst or just analyst. So if you guys have heard of it or have any experience with it, or do you think it's a good starting point for someone who wants to maybe pivot into consulting or product later on?
Yeah, it's a great starting point. I'm not particularly sure whether that role is going to be there in the next 2-3 years. Analysis, like we are automating it away. I am automating it away daily. I don't have any more requests to my analysts. I have an analyst who is reporting into me. I don't request her for data. I don't. There's no reason for me to. You're expected to do that. But on a more serious note, yes, excellent track. Most of consulting, most of anything that you'll do, even business management, consulting, you'll need to be really good. Like, let's say if you work at Flipkart, you'll need to be very good in a business general management role. I know because my wife works at the senior role over there. You would be expected to be very good at analytics. You are expected. It's a fundamental skill. So it's a great track for any of these roles, is what I feel in very short. Definitely go for it if people are hiring business analysts.
Yeah, I mean, and we do get a lot of candidates who want to apply to MBA programs who are data analysts, and usually their post-MBA path is either consulting or product management. So yeah, so it's a good, let's say, entry to product management or a consulting role, let's say post-MBA also. But yeah, I mean, I agree that AI is disrupting everything, right? So it might get disrupted, but yeah, I mean, as of now, it's a good job.
Like this said, Claude AI and ChatGPT is taking away what the job description of analysts are. Having said that, I think business analyst is a bit different than data analyst, and it's. I think the role is created itself so that people, if you're a new candidate, you're not going to understand the workings of the organization until you work in this role. Learning a few, the information going around the system, and that way, it's like a on-ramp. It's a ramp basically to get into higher position roles. But yeah, it's sad that AI is negating that. So I think if you find a role, try to get into it as soon as possible before, AI gets rid of that title entirely.
But just a question, sorry, Aman, so just one.
Go ahead, please.
Wouldn't it also prepare you for more of an AI leader kind of a trajectory, being let's say a data analyst or a business analyst? I'm just thinking out loud.
It does, but I mean, you need to get the role first, right? So it's
I'm just thinking out loud. Like, would somebody really be at risk from an AI disruption if they get into a BA role or let's say a data analyst role, or would it prove to be an advantage more from the point of view of leveraging AI after a few years if they get into something like this?
I feel like once they're in and they learn how to use the all the tools specific to that organization, like to provide value, then they have a really good trajectory. But for someone from outside trying to use, trying to show that they are really good at AI tools and can create impact is really hard when they're outside the organization. Once they're in, it's easy to show that, I feel.
I think role will shrink, Asim. Like a little bit of a hard take. I think role will shrink, positions will shrink, because if you fundamentally look at the kind of work business analysts or product analysts, data analysts, whatever, they would entail in an actual organization, and the bulk of them being hired by technology companies again, right? Because they are the ones that actually create data first and then essentially kind of brought inward that thought process, right? So for those, I believe a lot of it is automatable, because you're essentially providing an answer to a question. At least in India, how they're used, how analyst profile is actually being consumed today, is provide validation or refuting a particular hypothesis that somebody else has, or even like coming up with their own hypothesis. Essentially, that is bucketed into a different role altogether. That could be a general management position or product management position. Essentially, the way they use is, okay, I have this hypothesis, or we need to figure this problem out. The problem is defined. That, hey, I see there is a problem in this space. My numbers have gone down. Why have they gone down? Right. So that's how an analyst would add value. I believe a lot of that, given the context layer that people are building within organizations, is going to be automated away. So the positions are going to be definitely like they're going to definitely going to shrink. Right, at least in technology companies, at least.
Yeah,
I just
Aman,
want to
sorry.
share, yeah. So just wanted to share an example what we are seeing at Spinny, honestly, right? So we have struggled to find growth path for business analysts after 2 years, right? So while we are in the middle of automating this layer, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen faster, but even in the traditional world, right? Just being a tooling expert, right? As a business analyst, what Vibhor was saying, to prove or disprove someone else's hypothesis, it doesn't have a growth path of its own, right? It just becomes it stagnates beyond the 2-3 year mark. Organizations start to expect a little bit more, which is around, if they have so much exposure around the trends of consumers, right? Or the trends of your vendor ecosystem, whatever, right? You better fix those as well, right? So some sort of program accountability needs to be bridged. And I feel again, when these roles will shrink, if you are somebody who can also start fixing and being the program manager right from the get-go, that still becomes an interesting proposition, right? And I think at a lot of these tech startups, somewhere these BAs are also like pseudo program managers, right? So the terms are kind of used interchangeably, where some are called APMs as associate program managers, and some are called BAs, who are just, who gradually just rotate into these two positions. So it's also good to dig deeper, maybe talk to people what kind of an organization it is and how BAs operate in these firms.
What about the data scientist role? That's different from data analyst in let's say a tech or product company.
Yeah. So fundamentally, data has engineering, data has analytics, and there is data sciences. Fundamentally, these profiles are expected to do different things, and more roles will emerge, I guess. So data science, everybody who's in data science right now is working with an LLM, and the only people actually pushing the boundary there are the foundational labs. Very few other companies are able to do something about LLMs, because the model itself, completely. So I've worked in data science for a long period of time. Started with computer vision when it used to be image processing, and then computer vision, then machine learning algorithms, then essentially from machine learning to deep learning. From deep learning, now you essentially, which is training neural networks, to essentially having a neural network architecture which essentially solves basically outclasses every other algorithm in a bunch of different problems. So most people who are going to be working in data science today are going to be working with either LLMs or using or building using LLM. So building a product where LLM is an integral part of it, where you need to kind of post train or do something about the LLM, or put structures around it to actually make it useful. So data science itself is, I don't know whether it still exists as a position. I have not seen a lot of people being hired for it in the recent past.
Yeah, I mean, but I've seen a lot, like you said, so before. So I've also seen a lot of people who were data scientists now working more in the realm of LLMs, right? So is it fair to say data scientist role would be a good role to be in, maybe, even in the age of AI?
I don't know. Seems
More from a
because
product management or like tech company.
more from a project management point of view, I think it's excellent if you have exposure to, if you have an understanding about machine learning. I think it's helpful in any tech company. If you have an inherent understanding of how machine learning works, what is in sample, what is out of sample, not the keywords, but essentially what it would entail, what can a machine learn, what can a machine not learn, it'll be very useful. And I don't know, like a lot of by the time these folks essentially who are listening, and Kirtana essentially like it's been 4-5 years since they've been working. I don't know honestly, like what sort of problems data scientists or anybody would be solving. Like the artificial general intelligence kind of promised land.
Yeah.
What happens when we reach that singularity is like very like you can't really predict. At least I can't predict what's going to happen. What sort of jobs or anything that would like be required of that. I don't know.
But Kirtana, are data science kind of roles coming to IITs or IIT Guwahati? Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, there are like it's data scientist ML roles that are coming in. I mean, for now, I've seen quite a lot of people pivot towards it because, I mean, according to our understanding, it's like OST is too saturated, and the ones that do come would prefer people in branches that already have something related to it. Maybe computer science or DSAI and stuff. So the rest of us, ML and DS are some new up and coming roles which a lot of people are interested in, and analytics as well. So yeah, we're just hoping that it's a good thing to get into.
Yeah, got it.
Would anyone else like to share anything, or should we move on to the next?
You can move on.
Okay. So next we come to MBAs. So considering Aman bhai and Asim bhai, that you've done an MBA, when do you think it actually makes sense to do an MBA, and what was your experience on it? And since Vibhor Vayansh and Mai bhai, you haven't done it, have you ever considered getting one? Why or why not?
That's a spot of bother. I think I was never very sure about it that I want one, right? Which is why I wanted to give myself the time to think and really understand what do I need to work on, what kind of skills I need to grow from the place I was, right? So I was working at startups, and I saw that beyond a certain point, I did lack the maturity to look at problems from a CEO's lens, right? And I was probably in my own smaller world solving my small problems. So I needed to understand the realm of the business a lot more maturely, and that was and that reflection came only when I had spent about 6 years in the industry, right? And moved around and talked to many people, worked with many kinds of people, maybe worked with even MBAs from IIMs, ISBs of the ladder, right? So that's when I realized that I really can learn something further, right? By probably going back to a classroom, right? So that was predominantly my reason, right? Or the time when I started thinking about it. Now, what kind of an MBA do you need, right? That's a bigger question in itself, right? And there are many formats and many variables around like what geography, what kind of market you want to live, you want to be operating in, how much money do you want to spend, what kind of risk taker are you by design, right? And what kind of industries you want to work in. If you have that bit of clarity on that, see, some industries just by design hire from some of these B schools, so that there's not much choice. That eventually, if you do not do an MBA, can you work for those? I don't know, like if it's easy to work at a hedge fund just by applying your resume to random places. I don't think it works like that, right? So So yeah, it's a bunch of questions. It's a very deep exercise, I would say, which is why I'm never of the opinion that you should rush into it. Take time, evaluate, talk to a lot of people, understand your needs. If you're not finding growth in what you're already doing, that's the time I think you should start thinking about something. But if you are experiencing phenomenal growth, if you're enjoying your work, if you have a clear pathway, you might not need it. It is not for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So basically, if somebody wants to climb the corporate ladder or work in, like Aman said, sectors like industries like consulting or PEBC, IB, investment banking, right? Or in general, like want to climb the corporate ladder uh, up to a CXO level of a big organization, then MBA is definitely helpful. But let's say if somebody wants to start their own venture, then maybe they don't need an MBA. It's better to work in a startup, in a growing startup for a few years, get that exposure, and just maybe it's like start experimenting with few ideas on your own. So, and then I mean, even in I think some industries, like if you're doing good, you might not need an MBA even to climb the corporate ladder if you're really doing good, right? But in most of the industries, I would say if you really want to stay in corporate, if you don't want to start your own venture, then I would say in maybe 80% of the jobs, an MBA would help you. But if let's say you want to start your own venture, then maybe don't do an MBA. Then better work in a startup and start your own venture straight away.
My answer would be more blunt. MBAs are expensive. So if you have the capital to invest in it, then go ahead and do it. Because I think Aman Bhaiya can speak to it. MBA fees are through the roof here. I mean, if it's in India, I don't know what the fees is there, but it's through the roof here. And being in Boston, like I got the chance to interact with a few of the Harvard MBA and MIT MBA grads, and they are on another level on the sense that they already have existing industries, like, and they just came here for the connections. Having said that, you can also say you want to get into consulting or into you want a brand name, you just want to get into like I don't know, investment banking or like I said, consulting, then yeah, consider an MBA. But for product and especially, I would urge you to consider the degree I'm doing, MEM. Not necessarily my college, but MEM degree is pretty good if you want like a tech MBA sort of a thing. And there's some really good universities in the US that offer that, like Purdue or Dartmouth, stuff like that. So that is sort of like I think the closest thing that comes to product management degrees and MEM. So you can consider that. But yeah, MBA is like I said, uh, it's capital intensive, and take your time to make the decision. More work experience you get, the more qualified you are for an MBA anyway. So yeah.
I think you should have a good reason to do an MBA. That's about it. Just don't do it for the sake of doing it. There's a particular problem it has to solve in your life, and even though I've not done an MBA, I have had a bunch of people around me who've graduated from very good B schools, India and abroad. So most of them have had a particular reason that MBA will help me do this or achieve this or do that, right? So would be general practical advice would be definitely get exposed more before deciding you want to do an MBA, as Aman said. So definitely most value you'll be able to extract from a business management course is when you have some understanding of what a business is and how does it function. So that is at least what I feel. I have a very controversial opinion. I don't want to do an MBA ever for myself. So yeah, I am not a big MBA person personally.
Same here.
Because MBAs are also expensive, Chinmay, and so is living in Bangalore. Everything is through the roof. So yeah, MBA is extremely expensive. I know somebody who's graduating from Ahmedabad this year in the what's the other program? PGBX, the executive MBA. Every cost of every course, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, is beyond rational at this point in time.
Yeah, even ISB, which is a 1 year program, it charges you a hefty
It's
fee.
mad. It's mad the amount of because what you wouldn't realize at this point in time is that eventually like a high percentage of the people who go for an MBA essentially will end up taking education loans that you have to pay, that curtails your freedom after a certain point in time. You have a responsibility. When you become financially responsible for that, it kind of sinks in. So that is something you should think very seriously about. And you should, if you have a good reason, all for it. Asim Bhaiya's business is going to be down if we say otherwise. So
That doesn't matter.
no. I'm just saying on a lighter note, but it has to be like, if you are confident, if you think the right call for you, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think
I also have one more opinion, by the way, right? I feel it's also down to, let's say you have not had a great role right after your undergrad, right? So for some reason, you have not been able to grow your skill set. You have not gotten impactful projects. I think it can be a great step up.
Yeah.
From that perspective, and not just shrinking the perspective to just MBAs, but any masters or a graduate program after that can be a great way to just reset and probably enter a classroom, take a step back, learn more, maybe from the cohort that you're around, right? And then probably just get into the job market again. So that if you unfortunately find yourself on that side of the corner, maybe you can, that's one way to think about it as well.
It's a good way out. It's a very good way out. I know people who've been okay. So for example, if you're in an operational role, let's say operational, let's say if you're working in Swiggy ka delivery network mein some management, right? At one point in time, you will feel ki yaar, there's nothing that I can grow beyond, or even people will tell you that.
Yeah.
So it's a very good out.
Yeah.
Right. For a lot of people, and everybody's journey is unique. So you'll have to figure it out for yourself, but it's a very good reset, kind of reset on your, and the best value again would be once you've experienced you spend some time working.
Yeah, I mean, so like I think everyone said, so there are various reasons. So for example, like in our organization, people come to do an MBA also to pivot to some other industry or function that they are in, right? So that could be a reason to step up in their careers, would be another reason. Sometimes we even get candidates who reach a seniority level in their organization, but in order to get into a CXO role, their leadership tells them that you don't have an MBA. So just to get that degree also, sometimes people do an MBA. But I think like everyone said, so it's more about whether you need it or not. So if you're already doing well in your career, if you see a good career progression ahead without an MBA, then maybe don't do it, right? So that would be the more prudent path. But if, let's say, you are kind of stuck in your career or you want to shift industries, then maybe an MBA would be a good stepping stone to do that. And if you want to pursue entrepreneurship, you don't need to do an MBA.
yeah, it's really interesting. Both the perspectives of why you should and should not. Yeah, I think it's up to, again, subjectively and where you are positioned in your trajectory as well. So coming to the final question of this discussion, this is a little bit like personal and IITG oriented. So if you could just go back and tell your, student self one thing, then what would it be?
So for me, it would be to not hold myself back from experimenting with entrepreneurship. I wanted to, interesting fact is that my BTech project with Professor U.S. Dixit was on artificial neural networks in 2008 when I was in fourth year, right? When ML, machine learning, wasn't even a buzzword, right? So it was the foundation of ML. And then at that point of time also, I thought that, okay, this really has potential. Of course, like it did not, it wasn't as structured as it is now. And I kind of kept thinking that, okay, like I want to start something of my own, but took up a job, got kind of settled in that, then explored a lot of other things, and eventually again came back to entrepreneurship, right? So I'll advise myself who would be in 4th year to just give it a shot, just keep on experimenting with entrepreneurship, even if I have to take a job still in parallel?
Yeah, I mean, I would do two things. A, not get caught up in the IIT bubble. I would try to meet people outside of the realms of just IITs, engineers, right? I would try to understand what other people's have to contribute in the professional landscape or in, let's say, even the more creative landscape. That's one. B, I think I would not hold back in participating in competitions and probably contributing to every little fest out there. I was very selective at, hey, I would just do this, I would just do that, do everything. Get an opportunity to just stay outside of that hostel room and do everything that you can. You never know where you find your passion, where you find your friends, and these people ultimately will be the hallmark of where you end up, wherever in life and across different milestones. So yeah, I mean, just try to meet as many people as you can. This is the gold mine of resource that you're sitting around.
If I mean, I cannot emphasize enough on what Aman Bhaiya said. Getting out of the IT bubble would give all the students heaps of benefits, because there's a tendency to run through that engineering, coding, programming roles when you're in IIT, because there's that placement fever. But always keep in mind that there's a huge world out there with variety of roles, and it's not just tech, and there is a lot of space for your interests and passions. And if there was one thing I could go back and do, I would, not be in that race of just programming, and pursue my interests more passionately and hold on to it, because there is a market out there for whatever you like to do. It's just that whatever you do it with determination and give it if you do the work right, you will get the benefits. So yeah, I would stick to my guns if I was back in campus.
Oh, sorry, mine is going to sound a little preachy, but coming off what Chinmay said, I am very happy. I am very satisfied, as I'm sure everybody is on the panel. I don't know. I have no words. Keep doing whatever you're doing. I think things have a way of working themselves out. So it's all good. And as Chinmay said, this is the everybody's emphasizing on the same thing, Kirtana. Please don't say inside your rooms. Please, because this is literally the best time that you'll have. You'll realize school time is better than that, college time is better, and so on and so forth. So the connections that you make, and it's the human capital and the social capital that'll accumulate, that'll be useful for you anywhere, whether it be in personal or professional capacity. That is what will get you through the day at some point in time. So do that, do more of that. And so great. Thanks for the good conversation, I guess.
Great conversation.
Yeah, I'll do my best and try to get into as many things as possible. Even though there's only 2 years remaining.
Doing the weekends.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, in my first year, I did experiment quite a lot. Got into a lot of clubs, and then second year, it kind of becomes you have to choose a few because you can't really attend all of them. But yeah, it was definitely a great experience. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the panel discussion. We will be releasing the links of the guide and of the LinkedIns of all of our panelists as well. In case of any personal questions, they would be very glad to, address them. And thank you so much, Aman Bhaiya, Vibhor Bhaiya, Asim Bhaiya, and Chinmay Bhaiya. This was, exactly the grounded conversation that we wanted to have tonight. We really, really appreciate you taking out the time. And yeah, to everyone watching, the guide will be dropping on our WhatsApp channel very soon. And the case book will be coming as well. So if tonight, gave you a little bit clarity on where you want to, head, that's exactly why we had this. So thanks a lot, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nice meeting you.
You too. Thank you so much.